Are lithium iron phosphate batteries more dangerous than AGM on boats?
No, if installed correctly.
What's your take on the battle-born batteries?
Battle-born batteries, I have got away from them before any of these issues came up because of price point and technological advances with their competitors. Great company,
Okay.
though, still.
What is one upgrade you tell every cruiser to make first?
Put my cell phone number in your phone.
Today, we're introducing you to Rafael Escobar from Bluewater Yacht Tech. Welcome, Rafael.
Hey, Marilyn. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Rafael is here to talk to us about smart systems when it comes to power generation on boats, and he's got a specialty on catamarans that he'll tell us more about. And the reason we're here, especially with Rafael today, it's to obviously put in light that a boat's electrical and electronics package is one of the biggest drivers of both its usability, the enjoyment of the boat, and its value, especially when it comes to resale.
And guess what? You don't have to be an electrician, but you do need to know the right questions to ask, and that's why Rafael is here with us.
How long have you been in business, Rafael, and how did you get here?
Sure. Blue Water is a relatively new company, about 15 months old, but my history started 18 plus years ago in the catamaran niche before it really got popular working with all the big boat builders. Um, when my last company was much, much smaller. So I got a lot of opportunities to grow with Leopard and Lagoon and see FP rise up and then all these other boat builders popping out of the woodworks these days. And it's great for the industry, all the new competition. Competition always drives quality, which it's fun to be a part of. And it's fun that such a small niche in the yachting industry worldwide, everyone's so tightly, closely together and stays friends and is friendly in the industry and always driving each other's level of excellence. So Bluewater Yacht Tech is sort of derived out of my passion for electronics. I'm a big guy. I started in the industry 18 years ago working on diesel engines and working on boats with small engines. And you end up what they call engineering yoga. And I sort of like that. So I really got interested in electrics and electronics and sort of drove my passion that direction. So really got focused in and was blessed to early get in on the development of lithium batteries and was able to get in on training with Victron Energy early on when they were a tiny company. So I really got my hands in early integrating lithium, and the brand leader in integrating lithium into yachts, I would say, would be Victron right now. So we've been really blessed to ride that wave of the catamarans, the lithium, like all the conversion companies, and just be at the right place at the right time to enjoy and have the chance to try all the new products, the 48 volt, the high output alternators, all the cool stuff. So it's just been fun, and living in Fort Lauderdale, born and raised, it's sort of just a prime place for all those things. So
Me too,
definitely
me
feel
too.
blessed. Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And blessed to be here in Fort Lauderdale, be part of Blue Water and starting this new company under a much bigger parent company indirectly for a boat builder like Fountaine Peugeot.
And we know you do work heavily with catamarans, but what's different really about wiring a catamaran versus a monohull? Or is it more about the cruising program?
Yeah, the wiring overall depends on the boat builder. Some catamarans are really hard to work on, and some are easier. Same with monos. It's accessibility. Is it French? Is it South African? Is it American built? Cruising program has a lot to do with it for sure. There's a lot greater needs on a catamaran. There's a lot more air to fill if you're trying to invert air cons and more space to cool down. So there's all those different variables. I mean, when it comes to installs, you have one that heals over. You have to worry about exhaust on engines versus the catamarans. So you don't even think about it hardly. So there's all those fun things and catamarans. Yachting industry, if you're good at a product, it doesn't matter what boat you're on. It's just if like the other day I was on a 72 meter changing out 2 lithium battery banks, and it's a boat's a boat. It's just more complex and more liability on the line.
Yeah, exactly.
$1 million boat versus a $100 million boat. It's fun.
When a boat owner calls you, Rafael, does it tend to be a new boat upgrade, let's say, more of a refit, or more reactive to some kind of, something's broken on my boat emergency? What is the bulk of the work that you do?
In this season, I would say it's more the emergency and brokerage sales side. You guys have done a ton of great videos on the current market. New boat sales aren't super hot. In the past COVID times, it was all new boats, or a lot of brokerage boats too. But right now, a lightning strike, partial sunken boat, a lot of stuff I'm
Right.
working on right now. Other damages, fire damages having to do not with lithium, electrical wiring issues, but just a lot of reaction. And right now, it's a lot of brokerage boats, boats going for sale, trying to make them pretty, make them the best they can be for the survey.
That's great. So, Rafael, let's start with lithium batteries. And it's a word, a term that's thrown around a lot and for different applications. So, what does lithium mean in the boating world, for starters?
Lithium means just having the ability to use your boat a lot better. When you have someone that's been reluctant to switch over and they're an experienced sailor, when they come back to me for the first time, they're like, my God, that was a game changer. It's just the
Hmm.
voltage drop that happens with lead based batteries versus lithium. It's just your electronics work better, usability is much greater. So, and then of course, if you're a performance sailor or someone who likes to go fast on a powerboat, the weight makes a huge difference. I mean, it's truly a game changer.
And can you just dumb it down for those of us who don't really know the chemistry behind lithium? Lithium for a boat battery, let's say, or a laptop. Those are different things. Can you just tell us how these compare or how they're different?
Yeah, yeah. So chemistry. So I think about I recently joined the Tesla crew, and then it helped me understand Tesla because I know lithium, and I'm like, I never really dove into the Tesla world. And you're like, oh, you see cars catching on fire, and you're like, all right, that's why. And they find out what chemistry they're using. My car outside is a performance model, so it needs higher draw, faster charge, and it uses NMC, nickel metal cobalt. In boats, we're using what you hear a lot of people call LiPo 4 or lithium iron phosphate. And lithium iron phosphate, I'm an old car person, grew up around cars. I think it's like the station wagon. It's like the family van. It's not performance, it's what you use to get A to B, and you're not like trying to race on a track. That's what the LiPo 4 is. It's stable. They
That's a
add
good
extra.
analogy.
Yeah, they add extra in all the cells. They add fire retardant. So most of these batteries, if you throw them in a fire, cannot catch on fire. You sink them in underwater, they won't catch on fire because of the chemistry of the cells and what they do to the cells to keep them from being dangerous. But yeah, the stuff on boats outside of all the toys, the stuff you use for house banks is very, very safe if installed correctly.
Yeah. So for someone who's only ever known lead acid or AGM, practically, what changes with lithium as far as use capacity, cycles, those types of things?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think this is a pretty common knowledge these days, but you go from 50% using 100 amp hour battery, you can only get out 50%. If you wanted your gels or your AGMs back in the day to last forever, you go to 70% only. You like use 30%. And that's the only way you can get 7, 8 years out of a battery. And I saw it happen. And I'm like, how did you get this battery to last that long? And they're like, well, I never got below 70% state of charge. I'm like, okay, that's not really using a battery. But
Right.
that's the way it was back in the day. But with lithium now, you can draw them down to 20%. The sweet spot is between like 20, is pretty much 30 to 80%, staying in the middle. You do want to go to 100% often, but yeah, just the ability to have a bank, say, going from 700 amp hours of lead that you can only use 350, and you go to 700 of lithium, you can use well over 500. It's just the space, the weight, um, your ability to run longer with before you charge. Or if you have a bad rainy day from your solar, I'm sure we're gonna hit that topic next, you can wait longer for the sun to come back up again. So it's just so much better in so many ways.
Yeah.
And excuse my lack of knowledge on the matter of brands and batteries. I'm sure not all created equal, but are you an authorized distributor for some brands like Victron or Mastervolt? How does this work? And how do you help an owner choose if they don't know the difference between a good lithium system and a cheap one?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with dealer and distributor for many brands over the years. Currently, my go-to batteries, number one would be Victron Energy. Number two would probably be the Epic brand for price point and Victron integratable. Also, they've been heavily courting ABYC and following all their standards to the T and becoming a real lead brand. I do work with many other brands and have worked with many other brands over the years, but my go-tos are those. Mastervolt isn't as big with boat builders in the US, more in Europe. They're incredibly expensive, but their safety protocols and engineering integration is on another level compared to a lot of other battery brands. So that's what a lot of European companies love using Mastervolt. So it's more the niche. Mastervolt's trickier. There's not many people that know it. So I really love getting involved because it's sort of fun to jump in on something no one has a clue on, which seems to be so easy. But yeah, my go-to brands, I've worked with Super Bee, I've worked with Battleborn, I've worked with Relion. I used to be the face of Relion when they came out years and years ago. Yeah, I've worked with a lot of different battery brands. Genasun even was the first battery I've ever installed, and they're not even a brand anymore. A lot of things come and go in the battery industry.
Absolutely. We definitely have seen that. So let's talk a little bit now about BMS. What is it and why can it be a double-edged sword?
Battery management system, it's basically, since lithium is a little more volatile. In essence, you need to have some more protections from what they call thermal runaway. You don't want the batteries to get fully discharged to zero, like your engine start battery gets dropped to zero. It happens to everyone. Nothing happens. You just created your battery. It's done. With lithium, if it drops to zero, the electrons inside the battery can get out of control. And that's where the thermal runaway comes from. So you need to protect from those bottom numbers and the overcharging. So the
Gotcha.
BMS is that fail-safe to protect internally so that the batteries can never get to those dangerous thermal runaway points.
Got it.
Yeah. So when you have back in the day, we used to have all the time a Chinese built battery where someone just buy the cells from China, ship them over, and buy some ABC elemental P BMS and wire it in themselves. It was so easy to mess up. It's so easy to have a situation where someone didn't program it right. Even it was just too many variables without an engineering level degree or experience. So nowadays, we have internal BMS and external BMS. The BMS protects it from the highs and the lows. It controls chargers from anywhere your short charger, generator charger, solar charger, alternators from overcharging, or then on your other side, the house draws or your inverters from drawing it too low. So it's sort of the brain inside watching every cell for thermal, for voltage high, low, for ambient temperatures. There's a lot of variables that you need to keep those batteries safe to perform at their best.
And
Yeah.
you just mentioned alternated charging, which we know is like very scary for a lot of boat owners, perhaps because it's misunderstood. But can you explain why perhaps it's thought of this way, and what else do you see as dangerous integration points when you do a lithium conversion, and how do you solve for those?
Yeah, alternators, there's a lot of fear mongering. Um, and in general, it rarely happens. But when something does happen, it's a good reason why there is a little fear mongering at times.
Hmm.
What happens when you have an alternator? I don't know if you've ever seen an alternator fail and cook a lead battery where they boil over and they gas off. It happens. It happens in cars. It happens in boats and all that. What can happen with lithium is you have an alternator that gets out of control and it starts, say a 12-volt bank is trying to put 15, 16, 20, 30 volts or just keeps pushing amperage in and the battery's full. And the battery's like, I'm full. My BMS is seeing my cells get a little too high. We're getting uncomfortable. So the battery, what does it do? It disconnects itself. It has the drop-in batteries. The BMS has actually or a solenoid per se internal that'll open the contact. And so now your charging source, your storage unit, your tank disappears. And so you have this flood or rush of current. Think of it as water. It's got nowhere to go. It's uh, like a river running through something, and all of a sudden there's a dam smacked in the way. So now it's got to
Right.
find a place to go, and it finds anything with a capacitor, which is a storage unit. So it first finds your charger, blows out all the capacitors in the charger. You got digital switching with capacitors in it. It'll blow up every digital switch on your boat. It'll start finding your electronics. So it's not like a fire can start, but it just catastrophic things can happen. Um, but for that to happen, it's a very, very incredibly rare instance that that happens. So those are probably one of the biggest scares with the alternators. There's videos out there with people doing bench tests with alternators. Here's a standard alternator without external regulation on a lithium. And if you know anything, sometimes you see them turn up the dials and they're like, that's not even real numbers. Like they just push it as far as it goes till it smokes on purpose. They're like, that's not even real world.
Right.
So there's some videos out there that are ridiculous and they're trying to prove a point because lithium's capacity to receive energy is astronomically higher than lead. You can charge it so much faster and it'll take it in. So that's the biggest issue is temperature, overheating alternators and damage in them. Those are probably your biggest concern is shortening the life of your alternator.
Right. But what else has to be upgraded when you're swapping from, say, AGM to lithium?
Yeah, absolutely. The number one is the alternator when it comes to ABYC. The easiest way around that, cost effective, is do a basic DC to DC charger. Your standard alternators on most Volvos or Yamahas, about 100 amps, approximately 100 to 120. You
Mhm.
leave those on your start battery. You take a DC to DC charger from your start battery to your house, and it converts it to the profile and the profile of the lithium. And God forbid your batteries disconnect. You're not going to damage those DC to DC chargers as well as your alternators are protected because it's going to a tank already. It's already
Got it.
going to their start battery. So it has a place to go
Mhm.
if the house bank disappears. So that's the easiest, most cost-effective way to go. The higher end way to go is obviously external regulation. When you do
Right.
external regulators, you end up doing high output alternators. The alternators cost a couple $1,000, regulators another $1,000. The size of cable you got to put in is about this big when you're on a 12-volt system. Your
Right.
cables cost a couple $1,000. So you're 10, 15 grand. You can spend 20, 30 grand on a high output if you want to. So those are the key number one areas. Number two, most chargers these days have battery chargers from shore to generator to solar have lithium profiles. So all you'd have to do is have the right charger in place. All you have to do is change the setting. It's pretty simple on that side. It's really the biggest concern is installation quality and then your alternators.
Right. So, talking about numbers, you brought it up a little bit. What is ballpark proper lithium conversion from AGM for, let's say, a 40-foot cruising catamaran? What is the cost of that?
Yeah, 40-foot catamaran approximate lithium install. There's a bunch of variables. You could probably keep it basic under 10 grand pretty easily. Depends on the size of the bank, depends on the quality of the battery, depends on if you just want to do a basic drop in versus something that's integrating into, say, you have a Victron system already there. So there's a bunch of little variables, but you can get away with under 10 grand easily on a 40-foot cruising catamaran. You get into the alternative regulation, it escalates quickly.
And what would you say is the payback versus the traditional lead acid or AGM?
Oh, just time on the water. I guarantee you'll enjoy it so much better. You don't have to pay such close attention. If you drop the batteries too low to where they disconnect, you're not going to destroy your battery bank.
Gotcha.
You know, you could do it a bunch of times. It will shorten the life, but you're not stuck on the water with a dead battery. You run a generator 24/7 just to get home.
Right.
So it's definitely a lot more peace of mind um, when it comes to usability on that level.
And then talking about really true independence, a lot of the clients that come to us at Current Yachts, whether they are looking for a boat already equipped or they just bought a boat and they want to upgrade, they want to understand what the modern charging picture would look like incorporating solar. Where does power come from on a well set up cruiser? What would that system look like? Could you describe that for us?
Sure. Solar is definitely just the best way to go. I mean, I remember starting to do larger solar installs. Back in the day, a 1,000-watt install was like, that was a big deal, like, because we didn't have lithium as much back then. And now, like, the ability, lithium, another thing with lithium, it absorbs power faster. So you get more. Say you have a huge solar arch on your boat and you switch from AGM to lithium, you instantly gain 30% faster charging just because of the nature of the batteries being absorbed faster. Um, but yeah, solar it's a beautiful game changer for people. Can't have enough solar on any sailing or powerboat, in my opinion. because there are days where you don't have enough sun. So
Right.
you can't have enough solar. But I really think the freedom solar gives you is, I think the clients, especially sailors, are looking for peace and quiet. The more solar you have, the less you have to run other power sources, your alternator off the engine or even your generator, to regain your power back. So it's just, I think it's a lot of freedom when it comes to having just that free power and not having to think about running your engines as often.
And we heard the words, the PWM, which is the pulse width modulation, versus the alternative, which is much more expensive, the max power point tracking, or MPPT. Can you talk to us? Maybe this is more advanced, right? This is solar and charging 2.0, but give us a little bit of your take on that so our audience can understand where you stand on this matter.
It's funny. I had to think about it for a second because I haven't even heard of the, the alternate in a long
MPPT?
time.
Yeah.
It's so far behind now. Like just basically, if you're selling solar, you're selling MPPT now. It's sort of become the complete standard. The rest of it's, if you have one on your boat, it's probably a tiny little thing this big, from something that had like a one little tiny panel charging your start battery or something. Like I haven't seen those in a long time. Yeah, yeah. So it's sort of almost not even in the conversation these days.
Not
But yeah,
anymore. Got it.
just the technology goes from, they gain at least 30% more efficiency out of your panels instantly. Just to have a little computer that processes super fast. And there was a point where people were boasting how fast their processors were, the MPPTs. Victron used to have one of the fastest, and they used to be the best, and they're still one of the best. But it's sort of become, if you're buying solar controllers, it's just an MPPT. It's not
It is
even a
what,
thought
got it. Not
anymore.
even a conversation. Got it.
Yeah.
So I'm a sailor, and so I've heard people say, and I don't know if this is true or not, but when the boom or the sail is covering a portion of the panel, is that killing my whole battery bank if they're grouped together? Is it sometimes each panel is given its own controller? Is that a thing?
Yes, absolutely. I think individual controllers per solar panel is industry standard. There
Okay.
are some scenarios where wiring, you might want to put it in parallel, with shading never series. But there are a lot of panels when it comes to single controller, single panel. Higher quality panels have more internal diodes that protect the individual cells from shading. So in the past, we did videos years ago with a YouTuber where we shaded directly across the panel, and it literally blocked all power out production by just putting like a 1 inch shadow straight across it. But more
Interesting.
modern panels have more diodes that help protect that. It's obviously the biggest concern with sailboats. You have lines, you have a giant mast. And I would say the only time you might get away with doing a few in parallel is you're doing the solar racks in the back, when there's less shading. But anytime there's heavy shading, without a doubt, do one per panel.
Yeah, and I was going to add to your point. Obviously, you've designed custom solar for clients. We've seen with Fontaine Peugeot, they do a lot more of the deck integrated solar at the factory. A lot more builders are doing that. What other creative ways are you finding for those who have older boats where it's not already integrated? Can you speak to some of the solutions you've helped create?
Sure. Obviously, the easiest go to is putting some kind of solar rack or arch on the back, from aluminum or stainless. That's the most cost effective way of going about it. When it comes to adding walk-ons, aftermarket is incredibly expensive, let alone for wiring, let alone covering your deck and having to get custom shapes made. Um, but creative ways we've been doing, a lot of clients, if you have a catamaran, trampolines, we'll cover the trampoline with a semi-flexible panel. If the pros of it is great to put out when you're at anchor, the cons is storing it somewhere.
Mhm.
You have to have a big enough boat to be able to roll up something within, maybe the best you can get down is maybe 18-inch roll and slide it in somewhere.
Here goes your four peak storage.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So I've had clients with such big boats, they carry glass panels and they lay them out because they have a big boat and it's a couple on a big boat and they just don't care. They have a room they can store things in. So, I mean, that's a creative way all the way down to, there's a couple companies that do what's called sailcloth.
Ah,
It's not for your standard consumer where they'll actually put solar in your sail, but I've had them produce like canvas attachments where you could strap it down and like perfectly cover your trampoline, or if you have a big sun deck up on the fly, you can cover the whole sun deck, stuff like that. It's depends on, that's a little costlier, a little higher priced kind of thing. But I've had clients where they go on Amazon and buy the backpacks for campers, where
Hmm.
the panels all fold up,
Yep.
and they grab those and they throw them out.
Hmm.
But those aren't exactly designed for salt air and salt environments. So those have usually a shorter lifespan. Those kind of things.
So, how close do you think we are to, for a cruiser to realistically stop running the generator?
I have clients that are there. It really depends on your comfort level and your budget. There's a bunch of
Okay.
different things. Like it really depends how long you want to run your air conditioners. If you don't care about running air conditioners, we're there.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
If you want to live like a Floridian and have 68 degrees inside all the time, we're not there.
No, we're not there yet.
No, no, not in any way, shape, or form. The limitations with solar is that we can improve lithium storage, but solar, the sun can only give us 1,000 watts per square meter. So no matter how efficient panels are getting, I think the best you can buy is 24% efficient. There's guys in labs doing 40 to 50% on a cell like this big, little tiny things. It's like
Mhm.
experimental. Even if we get to 100%, it's only 1,000 watts per square meter. It's physics. We're limited. So we can only go so far on that side. I think a lot of it's going to come into future technologies with batteries and alternative energy sources is going to be the way to go. But with solar, you can get pretty close. You can go multiple days, even run your aircon at night for, like, say, a single cabin before you need to run a generator.
Mhm.
And on some boats, if you have enough space, bigger boats, and you're very conservative, you almost never run your generator these days. But again, it comes down to budget
Yeah.
because doing that kind of stuff does cost.
Yeah. You have to have a very large battery bank to be able to do that. Yeah.
And so to wrap it up on the solar conversation, Rafael, if you could share with our audience, where do you see folks typically cut corners and underspend versus overspend when it comes to their solar setup?
Yeah, I think the underspan is the quality of panel. Sometimes we go for the cheapest you can find. Um, there's so many options out there. It's hard to even know. For someone like me that's done it so many years, where brands are coming and going. My go-to was LG for the longest. I'm like LG is a multi-billion international company. They're never going to go out of business. They're not out of business, but they got out of the solar business, like the DC solar business. And there's other brands getting out of the DC solar because microconverters, there's more money in setting up fields for the government or putting them all over houses than the marine industry that wants a DC solar. So I think cutting corners is quality of panel. Like I say a full 100-watt panel, you can spend 50 cents to $1 a watt on the cheap end. The better panels are going to cost $2 a watt for higher efficiency, better
Huge
build
difference.
quality. So, say you on a 40, 50-foot catamaran, you're going to put a stainless steel solar rack on the back. You're going to drop 10 to 12 grand in the steel work.
All
And
right.
then if you're trying to save $1,000 on putting 4 or 5 panels on, it's being foolish. And then also price shopping for the cheapest guy. There's a difference between a guy that's $2,000 cheaper for the same install as someone else that's just a little bit more with the reputation that stands for years. The wires for when people are a couple $1,000s cheaper, it's usually the stainless is cut short or someone's trying to do it too fast. The wires are too small. The wire runs aren't as clean. You don't have all the ABYC experienced techs on board.
And probably warranty, I was going to ask as well, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Having an established firm that's going to be around for a while, the warranty level on the installation as well as the product, buying a product that's has good support in the US. That's the same for lithium. There's a lot of battery companies that, I can get a lifetime warranty, ship it back to China. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just buy another one.
Sure. Exactly.
In the next part of the conversation today, we wanted to talk to you about navigation electronics and connectivity. Obviously, huge changes in recent years. You build full NEMA 2000 networks from chart plotters to radars and VHF and so on. For a buyer looking out a boat and wanting to perhaps do an electronics overhaul, what would you be guessing is a good ballpark for them for, again, maybe a 40-foot catamaran or perhaps a 45-foot monohull? You can maybe give us. I know it can vary a lot based on components, but when you start the conversation, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it goes to the type of boat. Sometimes it's just
Sure.
space. Yeah, you can fit a 7-inch plotter on your boat. That's it. You're done. Unless you just bought a really cheap boat and you have the same amount of money you bought the boat for to put into it, and then we're building yourself a new helm. Done that. But yeah, it really depends on the boat for space because a 7-inch chart plotter is going to cost you a high end one, $1,300.
Mm-hmm.
19-inch chart plotter, you're talking about 8 grand.
Mhm.
It depends on, is it a power boat that has multiple screens? Yeah, you can spend 15 grand doing an upgrade very easily. You can spend 80 very easily
Right.
as well.
To range.
Just mind blowing what you can do.
Yeah,
The
fair enough.
toys, the toys are insane. That's where you can go absolutely crazy with nav systems and especially the new AI cameras these days. Yeah, it's getting fun. Yeah, NEMA 2000 is really just so easy to work with compared to where I started with. It was NEMA, but 0183. It was just, it was just I don't know how to
Do
compare
you
it,
have
but
a favorite over Garmin,
mm,
B&G, Raymarine?
you're gonna make me say something. I
Yeah,
have
I am.
friends.
I
I
mean,
have friends. So my
We
my
won't tell
go-to,
anyone.
yeah,
please.
except the listeners.
My go-to for a couple reasons is usually Garmin. Garmin is a company that is still owned by Garmin, and they've been stable. Their support is absolutely phenomenal. When it comes to it, if you're into airplanes or anything like that, the standard is Garmin. Um, for small aircraft. In yachting, they're all pretty equivalent these days. And people are always like B&G for sailing, B&G for sailing. And yes, if you're racing and you're really a tactician where you're really looking at every little millisecond you can get out, you need a fraction of a second faster to get your wind data down to your processor. B&G absolutely hands down if you're a racer and you really are, your life is into racing. You can use B&G Simrad for any power boat. I mean, I've a 130-foot Sportfish I got called out to once, and I was like, "Why?" Because the owner wanted the data. I'm like, "Okay." But Garmin, my go-to, just for its product support mostly. Raymarine's pretty dang fantastic these days. They've had some ups and downs. They've been bought out a few times. The same with B&G. But honestly, it comes down to preference of the clients. I sort of look at it as I'm an Android guy. Android, even though I'm an
We
Android
forgive
guy,
you, Raphael. We
It's
forgive you.
okay. We
you
won't
do.
judge. No
You
judgment.
didn't? No, I'm sorry.
No judgment here.
She wouldn't have had me on. Um, so I sort of look at like B&G is like Android or PCs where you can change and you have more access. Garmin is more like set and forget it. It's limited access unless you're really in deep on the OEM side. That so you don't have to think about it as much. And for boaters, usually the Garmin it's better on that aspect, and it's very intuitive and easy to work with. There are pros and cons to all of them, but when it comes to the sailing community, it comes down to preference, in my opinion. I think they're all excellent at sailing. The autopilots are all excellent if properly set up right. There are a lot of complaints about the Garmin autopilot in the community, but most of the time they've never been dialed in correctly by someone with experience. So yeah, there's a lot of options out there, and honestly, for people buying older boats that don't have the budget, there's a lot of new third party. There's a company out there called Orca. There's
Hmm. Hmm.
something called Signal K out there. It takes all the old data and puts it on Wi-Fi, puts it on your iPad, so you
Hmm.
can get a modern navionics chart with old equipment with a third party integrator. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of options out there for clients.
And let's go back to the old AIS transmit versus receiving? And what would you say that every offshore boat should have and why?
Yeah, TX and RX. I just think about the times where I've seen clients and had close calls. Let's call it that. I remember early on in my career, I can't remember the boat. It might have been a 50-foot voyage or something, really decked out, really nice, all great equipment, but it didn't have an AIS. Single handling it out in the channels, out off in the Atlantic somewhere. And he was just sitting in there, autopilot's on, he was enjoying dinner. And all of a sudden he heard a crack, and he looks up and he sees a giant ship just grazes him, and it catched his
Oof.
shroud and ripped the mast, and it could have absolutely killed him, destroyed his entire boat if they were just off by a few degrees. And I'm like, so what are you doing now? He's like, I'm putting an AIS in. And the key is, for especially for sailboats, these big ships, their pilot houses are so high. And if you have a little anchor light or even a tricolor, you can barely see it sometimes. And if you're just running without a tricolor, your nav lights are down low and your waves are running 5-6 foot
Yep.
and your
You
bridge
sink
deck's
down.
only 5-6 foot high, they can't see you at all. So having that AIS, and even if they do hit you or come close to hitting you, they have no excuse when you have an AIS because someone wasn't paying attention. But yeah, it's an absolute must, and the costs are not that high. The big brands, it's like $1,000 for all the big names for an AIS. You can buy your VHF nowadays with the AIS TX and RX built in for about $1,000 bucks. So you get a VHF and the AIS. And there's also a lot of other smaller name brands that are half that price that you can get AIS on board very easily. And now, the Bahamas require it, right? To
Right.
even cruise the Bahamas. So there's been a lot of uptick on smaller boats getting AIS lately
That's good. That's
for
good to
that
hear.
reason. Yeah.
I had a silly question from earlier when you mentioned different brands, equipment for electronics. Is it ever possible to mix and match? Let's say you buy a boat, it's great minus a few things, and you want the Garmin chart plotter and it's got a Raymarine system. Yes or no?
Yes. Absolutely, yes. You can mix and match, but there are limitations. Say you come on the boat and you have a 5-year-old Raymarine. You're like, man, gosh, I don't want Raymarine. I want my Garmin or my B&G. The first move you make in planning your budget is you change the chart plotter.
Right.
So the chart plotter will talk to any of your wind, your depth, any of your smaller navigation communication. It'll also work with your autopilot. The things it won't work with is what is not attached to NMEA 2000. NMEA 2000 is a standard protocol, so it's standardized so you can talk on any brand. It's the proprietary high-speed network. So like your computer network cables you'll see on the boat, the RJ45s, or the RayNets or the SynNets, those connect your chart plotter to other chart plotters. So you can't mix chart plotters. So you have one inside, you only want to change the outside. That doesn't work. You can't talk to the radars. You can't talk to, say, your depth sounder modules, your sonar, your Sirius weathers, the things that integrate on the high-speed networks. They're all proprietary. So if you say you have the easiest change out on a simple install is a chart plotter or your radar. That's the first move you make. And then over time, if you ever eventually your other equipment starts to fail, you start changing your wind and your depth and all those kind of things as you go. So those are the moves you make when changing and mixing and matching. 'Cause some people are so picky about a look, it doesn't match. You know,
Yeah.
a lot less people just won't make that move, but yeah, it all
Yeah.
depends on
Thank you
budget.
for that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Starlink now and remote monitoring. It's gone from a luxury, right, that most people couldn't afford to now almost near standard. Where are you installing this the most? How are you educating your clients on it when it comes to Starlink?
Yeah, I mean, Starlink, it's so easy. I mean, I have one sitting in a case behind me. I take the boats just as a backup. It's so cheap. It's so simple. It's this big, a little Starlink Mini. Um, a lot of clients are doing the installs themselves these days. I mean, it depends on, they put it out and bring it back when they need it. Hiring clients want to have all the wires hidden. They don't want anything to be seen. So I get a lot of those installs. Uh, the biggest thing I run into is the usability. I mean, are you running a business from your boat? Or are you streaming movies all the time? Are you an avid sports fan? Do you have to be heavy using? Or are you using it for email and the occasional movie? or just like you said, for remote monitoring. Like, so you need RAF to jump in because their boat just shut down because the lithium was freaked out because someone pushed a button, and happened to me yesterday. So you can remote in and you see what's going on, and you can assist the client. And then a lot of times I've helped people with Starlink in the middle of Pacific, like troubleshooting stuff.
Yeah.
Back in the day, if you could afford the sat phone with the dish in the back, it'd be like that. You can't. It was worthless. You spend
Right.
thousands of dollars, and you make a phone call in the middle of Pacific, and you can't understand what's going on. You can't
Right.
help anyone. Now you're just pulling out WhatsApp and you're just video streaming and talking live while you're remote supporting at the same time. So it's really the data plans. I think when Starlink first came out, everyone was buying the RV. It was $50 a month at one time, unlimited. Everyone's streaming all day, every day. Now I had a client recently go out, avid sports fans, avid moviegoers, just love watching TV when they're on the boat, each his own. They went out for a week, came back with an $800 bill
Mhm.
out for 1 week, and they had a decent plan. So
Yep.
I got them in touch with my buddies at MTN, who are the commercial third party, the biggest Starlink providers in the world commercially. So they're the cruise ship guys, all the big, big, big commercial boats. I said, you need to talk to them because they understand it better than anyone. They got them on a plan that's, they could end up being $1,000 a month they're paying. But during football season, they're happy to pay it because they're watching games a day, all day.
Right.
So for
Yep.
them, the value is there in spending $1,000 a month, and then they can bring it down when season's over. So it really comes down to usage when it comes to Starlink.
And I'm going to share my own personal warning. Make sure you toggle off ocean mode when you're done with it, because ocean mode stays on unless you turn it off. Pro tip. Ask
Yes.
me how I
I've
know.
been there, done that as well.
That's expensive, yeah, for sure.
Yep.
So I wanted to ask you some questions now on evaluating boats. A lot of buyers have questions when it comes to both electronics, of course, but just the electrical system on board boats. And as you probably realize, a marine survey is a snapshot in time. A general surveyor will typically not go in depth into reviewing electronics or electric system. And I wanted to ask your opinion on whether or not buyers looking at a significant investment, like, maybe a boat, $500,000, $400,000 and up, should they consider a separate electrical inspection? And if so, who do you hire to do this sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think nowadays some of the better surveyors are studying at the EBYC. They're challenging themselves. I don't know if it's any standard in the Marine Surveyors Association or not, but the better ones are getting good at it. But again, like you said, they're general surveyors, so they understand enough to be dangerous in some ways. So a lot of times I'll get calls from surveyors to get an opinion, to walk on and do an evaluation of, hey, I saw this, and they understand the ABYC code and the install side, but they don't understand why something's happened because they can't get into the system to test it. So a lot of times, like someone like Bluewater, like myself, will come in with the Victron, the Mashable, and expertise to come in and dial things in. I think you should, if the boat has lithium, any way, shape, or form, or has any higher end system installed on it. A standard AGM basic, you can hire someone like me just to have a second opinion on, because again, like generalists, you don't trust a generalist on a high end sailboat for rigging. Always get an independent rig inspection.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
the same thing with electronics. When you have high end electronics, get the specialists out there to look at the things. Same thing with diesel engines, get a diesel expert to come and look at it. If you're making a significant investment and that's your boat, before you pull the trigger fully, spend a little extra money.
And it's a really good point that the general surveyor may have that knowledge or should perhaps cover it. So, as a buyer, if you're looking at different surveyors and evaluating their services, ask the question. We recently worked with Scott Miller out in Annapolis. He did a survey with us on a Katie Krogan 48, 10-year-old boat, identified that behind the panel there should have been a plexiglass separator now to meet the new BYC standards to separate DC from AC components and avoiding just kind of accidents like that. So,
Yeah.
he pointed that out in the report. It's not a true deficiency, I would say, as far as like the priority list. It's not at the top, but it is something that can easily be added. And your surveyor, if you pick them carefully, should be able to tell you how far they go into this review. And then to your point, Rafael, could be supplemented with a specialist, especially when there's newer components, lithium installed, and you want to have absolute assurance that everything was installed properly and to your liking.
And for
Absolutely.
our listeners, their takeaway from listening all the way to the end of this podcast, thank you for that. What would you want them to know are the red flags to look for?
Number one red flag would be owner DIY installs.
Okay.
There are some guys that are amazing out there. I've had guys that were way, way smarter than me, not allowed to install their own lithium because their insurance says, no, you can because you don't do it every day. He's like, well, I'm this government designer, engineer. I do it practical hands-on. The guy is brilliant. He had to call me, I'm pretty smart, but I'm not brilliant on his level. Like he's freaking physicist, like doctorate, all this stuff. Super smart, but I had to go do his install. It was good. It was a good experience. I always like to learn from my clients.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I always thought I was pretty smart, so I met really smart people, and so I like to learn from other people as well as in growing in my knowledge and experience in life as well. So, yeah, DIYs are dangerous. I just was on a boat during the survey. I got called in, asked how much it would cost to fix it up and clean it up and get the fire scary hazard of that engine room safe, and it was I don't know, $8,000 estimate ended up being $11,000 cost in the end because and I could have probably spent another 10 to make it absolutely perfect, but
Right.
it was necessary. It was an owner install, exposed terminals everywhere,
Mm.
10 wires on one post, and it worked for years and heavily
Uh-huh.
monitored, but the risk level was very high, very high. So yeah,
Yeah.
DIY is look out for those things.
And so let us translate really quick. What does that mean if you're a seller? Please hang on to your receipts. Please hang on to the proof of install so that the installer can be identified easily. The list of the work, completed is clearly outlined. You can't make up a receipt from a professional installer. So just save the receipts for the work that was done on the boat. And that goes for most maintenance and upgrades, but it's especially
Yeah.
important
Everything.
for electrical. So.
Absolutely.
Good advice.
Thank you so much, Rafael, for spending this roughly 40 minutes with us. We enjoyed having you, and we will put the link to your company, Bluewater Yacht Tech, in our marine directory so that our listeners know where to find you. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'll
Thank
see
you,
you on the
Marilyn.
next one.
Thank you,
Fair
Amanda.
winds.
Absolutely.
There wins.